small banks. You know, they usually play a critical role in helping their communities recover from a recession. But my next guest finds they face plenty of challenges and many may not survive. Mark Sunshine is the president and CEO of MA Sunshine Capital. Mark, good to have you with us. We were just talking during the interlude here that, you know, some people go fishing, some people go skiing. You seem to have done a tour of East Coast small banks, haven't you?
Well, I think I did a tour of the East Coast bad small banks.
Bad small banks.
That's right.
Give us a number. What were you doing? You were viewing banks all over the coast?
There's a group that I'm part of that's looking to buy a small bank that's in trouble and turn it around, turn it into a business bank for the local community. And we started looking at the small banks back in the summertime that existed up and down the East Coast. And I guess we've probably looked at about 10 to 15% of the banks that are on the FDIC's troubled bank list, the unofficial list that some people publish every week. And what we found is they're in a lot worse shape than people think. They look a lot like savings and loans of the 1980s. They're CD whores, as we call them. They don't really do community deposit gathering anymore. They just take in CDs, and then they go to Federal Home Loan Bank and borrow a ton more money, usually hot money, which isn't so good. And then they lend it out in a lot of real estate speculation, acquisition and development, construction loans to developers that are undercapitalized. And we found time and time again that the small banks, the community banks that the administration's looking to save the economy, that in fact those institutions are a lot more troubled than people think. We also found a lot of bad books and records reporting. So
before we go on, just the hot money topic. What do you mean by that when they go out and they borrow the hot money? What does that mean?
Well, instead of borrowing money by taking in deposits from people like you and me and our kids and our parents, they go into the wholesale money markets and buy money, if you will, from the Federal Home Loan Banks or other entities like broker-dealers that are willing to do collateralized lending to them. That type of lending doesn't have a lot of franchise value, isn't a real stable type of lending, so when they get into trouble, that lending evaporates and they have a liquidity crisis. Very much the same as, for example, Wachovia had a liquidity crisis or WAMU had a liquidity crisis. Very same kind of idea, but in a smaller format.
So given the governance that you were able to see, the management styles that existed, are we going to see a big crisis in small and mid-sized banks?
Well, I think we're going to see quite a few small and mid-sized banks either fail or be forced into mergers and consolidate by the regulators. And, you know, our guess is somewhere between 1,000 to 2,000 of the small banks we think are actually going to disappear, which is a very large number. It's almost on the magnitude of the savings and loan crisis back in the late 80s and early 90s. And again, having been around for the savings and loan crisis and then gone on this bad bank tour, instead of like going on a Sonoma wine tour, for example, with my wife, it looks an awful lot the same.
And so what is the prognosis? I mean, do we get this cleaned up in 6 months, in a year? What happens?
It depends on how aggressive the FDIC and the other regulators are. They've been giving the small bankers that are in trouble a great deal of leash, so to speak, and haven't been pushing them over. I think that has a lot to do with staffing constraints at the FDIC and their ability to resolve these institutions rapidly. You know, the resolution time is really dependent on how fast the FDIC can staff up. You know, I would guess next 12 to 18 months you're going to see quite a few institutions go. They're taking them now at the pace of about four or five a week.
So it could be a long, drawn-out process. Switch gears now. Tell me about what's going on in jobs, because we were talking earlier in the day about maybe there are some changes in the tax code that could actually spur job growth that aren't necessarily revolutionary ideas?
Well, that's exactly right. There are a whole bunch of things that the administration could be doing to get jobs growth going. And in fact, it was just about 1 year ago to this day that I was on your show and I said, the Obama administration's planning is not going to create jobs. It's not the right sort of incentives. They're going to be flushing a lot of money down a black hole, and they're not going to get the kind of jobs growth. And I think I predicted something like 10% unemployment.
Give us one, because we're almost out of time. What's the one thing you would be recommending right now?
Take away tax disincentives for foreigners to invest in commercial loans to growing American businesses. Right now, if a foreigner invests in a commercial loan to a growing American business, a loan that revolves, a working capital capital loan, they could have all of their earnings and profits globally taxed by the U.S. government, so no foreigners do that. Take away that disincentive. You see foreign money come in and liquidity return to the lending market.
Well, maybe they're listening now. Maybe after this year, we hope so. All right. I want to thank you very much, Mark Sunshine, coming in from MA Capital. Appreciate your thoughts on small business and also what's going on in the banking industry. Love that bank tour. All right.